Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903. In November of 2020, the Democrats and their allies intentionally changed and ignored state law in the administration of the election. They were planning to pull off the greatest scheme, worse than Watergate. They didn't think we would catch them, but we did. Find out more details about what happened, how they did it, in the new documentary film called 2,000 Mules, directed and narrated by renowned filmmaker and my friend Dinesh D'Souza, and executive produced by the Salem Media Group. This is also with research from truethevote.org. 2,000 Mules tells the story of the ones who tried to hijack a presidential election. You'll see the actual video surveillance tapes. You'll see how their cell phones were tracked to box after box as they got paid to carry out this illegal scheme. Watch the movie and decide the truth for yourself. Attend a limited release premiere of 2,000 Mules on May 2nd or May 4th. Check your local listings and get your tickets today at 2000mules.com. That's the number 2000mules.com.
As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor, and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Happy Wednesday, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and I am so excited that Senator Doug Mastriano won in a landslide victory last night in Pennsylvania. I was there with him and his wife, Rebby, and hundreds of amazing Pennsylvanian patriots and supporters who turned out for Doug Mastriano in person. And of course, the voters really turned out, because even though the latest polls had shown Doug up by about 12 to 14 points, he actually won with 45% of the overall vote. And 45 is a great number, right? 45 is a winner's number. So that was awesome. We were talking about that this morning. But he actually won with more of the vote than the second and third place finishers combined. So what does this tell us? Well, first of all, that the Republican establishment is basically irrelevant, because they tried really hard to push out Doug Mastriano and say, oh, he's too divisive. He's not, who we want, the safe and secure option and all of that. But Pennsylvania voters know who the true champions and the true fighters are. I like to say that Doug Mastriano is the Donald Trump of Pennsylvania. And that came through very loudly and very clearly last night. And so, of course, the mainstream media was melting down over his win today, with CNN actually putting out a headline that says, "Election denier wins the Pennsylvania primary." Well, let's think about that for a second. When he was, and he still is, but when he was senator back in 2020 and simply held a hearing asking questions about election integrity, now asking questions is somehow election denying, and wanting to know that every legal vote counts and counts fairly is election denying. I mean, this is ridiculous. And so, but this is what the left does. They like to put out these bold assertions that the 2020 election was the most secure and safe and free and fair election ever, right? That's their assertion. But have they actually backed up that claim with any support, with any credible evidence, with anything? No, they're just claiming that. And yet they think that somehow, even though there is a ton of evidence and support for fraud that occurred in the election, and they say, well, it's not widespread enough, it's not overcomable, it's not outcome determinable. Well, somehow they still claim there has been zero evidence, even though that's patently false, just based on the record. And yet they will still put out these claims that they don't feel that they have to provide any proof or any facts or any backing for. And so they can continue to call him an election denier. They call him an insurrectionist just because he happened to be in Washington, D.C., listening to sitting president Donald Trump on January 6th of 2021, which, by the way, is absolutely legal and lawful to do. But even though he didn't go inside the Capitol, he didn't breach, he didn't commit any offenses at all, they still call him an insurrectionist. And this is what the left does. And this is how they're going to start today a nasty, nasty campaign against Doug Mastriano, the same way that they have been completely trying to dismiss and discourage and attack people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and others to try to force them off the ballot with these absolute lies. So I am so proud to support Doug Mastriano, be on his team. Full disclosure, I've of course endorsed him. I was the first one to endorse him. I'm helping his campaign. And I think it's absolutely fantastic that the voters of Pennsylvania, by such a wide margin, told not only the Democrats, but the Republican establishment of Pennsylvania, yeah, sorry, we are not going to believe what you're saying about Doug Mastriano because we can decide for ourselves who to select and prefer as our leaders. And we want Doug Mastriano. And you know what? They made a great decision. And I'm so proud of everyone in Pennsylvania who got out and voted yesterday. We have a lot of work to do for the general election. So you'll be hearing updates on this channel, of course, but continue to follow me on all social media because I'll continue to tell you, where we're at in Pennsylvania. And I am supporting that election because, as you all know, the Pennsylvania governor's election is the most important election in 2022. And we have to make sure to start a grassroots wildfire in Pennsylvania that Doug Mastriano started and now President Trump has endorsed and is putting his full weight behind in Pennsylvania to spread the wildfire of liberty from the Keystone State all across the country. So that's great. So speaking of the kind of crazy insanity names from the left, the other headline today that I definitely want to cover is that Elise Stefanik, who is leader, and also Representative Mullen, introduced a House resolution today to expunge the Trump impeachment. And I think this is fantastic. Of course, it's not going to pass right now with a Democrat-led majority, but I think the reason that they are putting out this resolution now is to show the voters who are going to vote in the midterm elections exactly what they are going to do with a House majority after November. And I think that this is incredibly important. And as they are saying, as Representative Mullen said in a statement, Democrats used their second impeachment resolution to once again weaponize one of the most grave and consequential powers of the House. This was never about the Constitution. It was rooted in personal politics. And Stefanik said, the American people know Democrats weaponized the power of impeachment against President Donald Trump to advance their own extreme political agenda. From the beginning of this sham process, I, Representative Stefanik, stood up against Nancy Pelosi's blatant attempt to shred the Constitution as House Democrats ignored precedent and failed to follow the legislative process. But President Trump was rightfully acquitted, and it is past time to expunge Democrats' sham smear against not only President Trump's name, but against millions of patriots across the country. So I would argue that this same logic applies to the first impeachment. That was purely political as well. And so hopefully Stefanik and Mullen, after the Republicans take control of the House in 2022, will introduce a new resolution that will actually expunge both. And so expungement is a legal term that basically corrects the record and says that for the purpose of the law and for the purpose of the record, that expungement and going back and saying, we are going to take away an arrest record in criminal court, for example, or a conviction that has been overturned. Any of those things can be expunged through due process and through the law. And that's exactly what should happen, because the Democrats, of course, like to use this talking point that President Trump was twice impeached. Well, impeachment, as we all learned through the course of President Trump's administration, impeachment does not also equal conviction. Impeachment is simply basically the indictment papers in the forum of the constitutional process for impeachment and removal of a chief executive officer. And so when impeachment, like a politically motivated prosecution, fails, that record can be expunged so that it is no longer on the record of the accused or the targeted American citizen that was wrongly prosecuted. And so this prosecution of impeachment absolutely was politically motivated. Thankfully, both times it failed in the Senate to result in a conviction. And so for the House to go back now and correct the record and expunge the record, I think is not only wise, but it's also justice. And for the history books, that ability of the House to go back and expunge the record would absolutely serve the purpose of telling future congressional leaders, you're not going to use the impeachment clause for partisan political purposes. Now, I addressed earlier this week, and go back, I believe it was on Monday, either Monday or Tuesday, addressed the impeachment possibility of Joe Biden after the Republicans would take back the House majority in 2022. And I said very clearly, this should never be for political retribution, for political purposes. This isn't a tit for tat. This is not about saying, well, because you used and weaponized impeachment for partisan political purposes, now the Republicans can do the same thing. No, we as conservatives are called to a higher standard in the law to actually go with our U.S. Constitution and to make sure that we fairly and appropriately apply our rule of law. And so if the House Republicans end up impeaching Joe Biden, I believe they have a constitutional and a legal basis for doing that is not weaponizing partisan politics, but actually using the intent and the language of Article 1 that gives the House the ability to file impeachment papers, to then have a trial in the Senate for removal of our chief executive when he has derelicted his duty and when he has actually willfully broken and ignored our supreme law of the land and even federal law. So this is a great thing, and I really appreciate Representatives Mullen and Stefanik for being willing to put out this resolution as, I believe, a signal for what is to come. And so coming up in just a few moments, Kari Lake, who is one of my dear friends, I've endorsed her for governor of Arizona, will be joining me right after this. Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903. All All right, and joining me now is my good friend who I have, of course, endorsed as well, Kari Lake, who is running for governor from the great state of Arizona. And Kari, I had the opportunity to see you again at Mar-a-Lago last week, I think it was, or a couple weeks ago. Time flies so quickly, but it was so great to see you there. And, we were talking just a few minutes before the show about the election last night. So right off the top, I want to get your thoughts on what we saw in the election and also, some of the concerns that we still have.
It's first of all, it's great to be on. Thank you, Jenna, and it's good to see you again. It's frustrating. I mean, I'm trying to think of a word I can use without getting us in trouble. I don't want to start swearing here, but to see some of the same things happening again, and I even heard in a place like Oregon, they're having issues with their election results, not being able to count them for a couple weeks. That sounds very suspicious to me. But in Pennsylvania, printing errors and too close to call. I mean, this is outrageous. Have we learned nothing in the last 2 years? We know we have learned a lot. We've learned that our elections were corrupt, that they found a way to cheat at every single level, and we haven't corrected that. And here we are at the midterm elections now. We're having the same problems. The citizens of this country are so fed up. They're so fed up with their elected officials. All of this information that's been discovered, whether it be through Dinesh's movie 2000 Mules, through True the Vote, through the Arizona forensic audit. These are facts of what went wrong. This is pure evidence that's admissible in a court of law. And that we have lawmakers who haven't fixed this before the midterm elections is outrageous. And these people really should be voted out of office. We've got to get people in who are willing to bring back honesty to our elections.
Absolutely. And I agree with you that the American people are so frustrated because it has been a year and a half, and a lot of people who give me feedback routinely about election integrity are saying, "Okay, what's happening? Why hasn't anything changed?" And it's frustrating for me as an advocate who I'm not an elected official, and so I don't actually have any power to force the legislature or the courts to do anything. I can only advocate. And so when we say, we have to elect people in office who will change this, but then we see that the problem is the election itself, I think a lot of people are frustrated in saying, how can we make sure to get people in there when we have a corrupt system that isn't being changed? And why do you think that is, that Republicans who are in state legislatures who can pass election integrity measures, some have, Georgia has done a little bit, Arizona did conduct that forensic audit, but it seems like there isn't enough being done.
I personally believe it's because some of the Republicans know that they may not have won if the elections hadn't been corrupt. They think that, wow, they won by such a small margin that they may not even be sitting in any seat of power if we didn't have corrupt elections. So I think there's a lot of Republicans, sadly, and a lot of Democrats who like the system the way it is. And here we, the people, come marching forward. We, the people, America first, saying, no, not anymore, not on our watch. We are going to get our elections restored. And it's going to take a transformative candidate to bring people to the ballots. And here in Arizona, I'm the Trump endorsed, America First endorsed candidate. I'm endorsed by you, Jenna, and so thankful for that. I'm endorsed by the America First movement, and we're going to come on strong. We have a movement in Arizona. We're going to come out to the polls in droves, and it's going to make it really hard for them to cheat. It's going to be kind of like 2020. President Trump was such a landslide victory in reality that it made it so hard. They had to pull out all the stops in their cheating. And they look like fools in trying to pull all this off. And they think they pulled it off, but we know what happened. We're going to get to the bottom of it when I'm governor. We're going to drag that 2020 election back out. We're going to pull out that forensic audit. And we're going to go line by line and fix every loophole where they cheated. It is a priority, number one, because stolen elections have serious consequences. And the American people are dealing with those consequences right now. We can't afford gas. We can't afford our energy prices. We can't afford groceries. Forget about a summer vacation. There's no way families can afford that right now. They can't even find food to feed their babies. We have a border that's being overrun. We have fentanyl pouring in, poisoning our people. Not overdoses. This is a poisoning. And we have handed over and ceded control of our borders to the cartels and the narco terrorists. And the people of this country are so fed up. They are rising up, and we're going to show up at the polls. It's going to be such a loud and clear message. And in Arizona, We're going to change the direction of this entire country. We're going to seal that border up, stop the cartels, turn our elections around. And every state is going to say, we want to do what they're doing in Arizona. We want the elections that are fair and honest like they have in Arizona.
Mm-hmm. And that just is so fundamentally American. And everything that you just said shouldn't be a matter of partisan politics. That nothing of what you just said was Democrat versus Republican. It's just American, because we, the people, get to select and prefer our leaders, and we, the people, can revoke our consent through the ballot box. And so we have to make sure that we protect the integrity of elections, and just asking those questions or making those statements to close loopholes and to make sure that it's free and fair elections, that somehow then to the Democrats and to the leftist media and even some of the Republican leaning establishment legacy media, that then becomes, oh, you're trying to suppress the vote. And they have all of these ridiculous framing that truly is just propaganda, where
Mm-hmm.
I think you're totally right, Kari, that we, the people, see differently. And I think we saw that in Pennsylvania last night, where 45% of the vote went to Doug Mastriano when even the Republican establishment was trying to take him down. And so as you're there in Arizona, what are you seeing on the ground and talking to the grassroots and talking to the people of Arizona who also are fed up?
Well, for starters, everywhere I go, we have a record crowd. If I go speak to an event that they would normally draw 40 or 50 people, we get a call. They say, we have to move it into an auditorium. We have 200 people or 150. They've got people coming in who've never been involved in politics that are coming out to see and hear me speak because they know that I'm going to represent them. It is me versus a rhino right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we're at a crossroads here in Arizona. We have a huge America First movement, and it is America first. It's Arizona first. You're right. It's not Democrat, Independent, Republican. It's common sense solutions to our problems. It is the establishment and the so-called experienced politicians and leaders that got us into this mess. And it's going to take America First policies to get us out. So we have people who've never been involved in politics getting off the sidelines. They're getting into the game. And we're at a crossroads right now. Do we want to continue the old school way, which is the McCain style politics, where the McCain clan kind of ruled with an iron fist, and anybody who wanted to get into politics had to go through that establishment swampy chain? Or do we want it to be the people choose who their leaders are?
Mm-hmm.
And right now, we've got two candidates, me and my opponent. My opponent is establishment globalist open borders. She's married to a billionaire, and she's running ads trying to paint herself as America First because she knows, and so does that other side, that America First is the way. But
Yeah.
they know they can't win with their own policies. And so they have to lie in their ads and make it look like she's one thing. And she's truly just the opposite. She's what we're trying to get away from in this country, which is a political elite controlling everything. And we, the people, just sitting there having to deal with the tyranny they push on us. We've been imprisoned by their bad policy, and we're tired of it. We want our freedom back.
Yeah, absolutely. And someone told me at Doug Mastriano's victory party last night, we need to stop calling them rhinos, because that's actually, rhinos kind of a hefty looking animal that people actually like. We need to start calling them minnows, MAGA in name only. And nobody wants to be a minnow, this little fish, right? So, but that reminded me of exactly what you just said, which is that I think voters need to stop seeing this as Democrat versus Republican, and especially in the primaries, see this as America versus anti-America, right? And so this
America
isn't.
first versus America last.
Yes. Yes. And
And
this, because the Democrats and the Republicans are no different anymore. They are basically the same party, because they are interested in themselves. They're interested in globalism. They're interested in pay for play politics. And what you said too about Republicans who don't want to change the corrupted system because it advantages them, that is no different than the Democrats. So it is America first versus America last.
yeah, of course, they don't call themselves that. They try to, make it look like they're, America first and with President Trump. And I tell people every day. I mean, I'm so blessed, Jenna. I worked in this state covering it for 27 years. My job was to go out every day and cover the biggest issues facing our state. So I understand the state. I have a 27-year relationship with the people, and it's not just name ID. It's a relationship. I was with them in good times and bad times as the number one news anchor in the state. And we have a relationship, a very tight relationship. So they're not believing the lies the other side is saying about me. But I understand what this is about. And I don't want Arizona to lose our Arizona heritage, our Arizona uniqueness. We've got to preserve that and protect. Arizona is kind of the gateway to protecting this whole country because our border is very complex. It's wide open right now. And we've got to get somebody who's willing to stop what's happening at our border, turn our elections around. If we don't have a safe and secure border and we don't have honest elections, we don't have a country. And it all runs right through Arizona. I believe my race is the most important race in the entire country this election cycle. Because if we lose another border state to either a rhino, open borders globalist, or Katie Hobbs, socialist Democrat, I fear for our entire country. I don't mean to sound dramatic, but I truly fear for the entire country.
And that's where we're at. And we're seeing that, unfortunately, Texas went ahead and renominated the rhino in Governor Abbott, who refuses to protect the border. When they could have had Don Huffines, who would have protected the border. And so in Arizona, I think you're absolutely right with that. And so what is your plan as governor when clearly you won't be getting any help from the Biden administration that wants this open border policy? But as governor, you actually have power to protect your border. So what is your plan?
We absolutely do have plans to protect our border, and maybe we'll guilt Abbott into doing even more than he's doing already. My border plan is called Defend Arizona, and that's exactly what we're going to do. It is the toughest border plan, the most aggressive border plan that this country's ever seen, and we need it right now. When I covered Arizona for 27 years, we had the most secure border under President Trump. It had been a mess before. President Trump came in and he built the wall. And I remember John McCain, when he was running for Senate several cycles back, saying, we're going to build the dang fence. He never did. And as a matter of fact, he fought tooth and nail every effort President Trump made to build that wall. So when I am governor, after I take my hand off the Bible for the oath of office, I'm going to issue a declaration of invasion. We're going to get the legislature to help redefine what abandoned federal property is. And we're going to take back that material that's laying on our border to finish the border wall, President Trump's border wall project. We will finish that on state and federal land. The Guarantee Clause, Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution requires that our federal government protect us from invasion. We have the biggest invasion on foreign soil that we've ever seen since the founding of the United States of America. And they're doing nothing. They're part and parcel to it. They are part of the biggest drug running, human trafficking, child trafficking operation and crime against this country. Our government is part of it. So we have to step up as governors and protect our own country and our own citizens. We're going to take our Arizona National Guard, move them to the border, prevent people from coming across. Those who we catch who come across, we're sending back. And we're going to, as I said, finish that wall, blow up these drug tunnels where they're smuggling fentanyl in to poison the good people of Arizona and this country. I call it a poisoning because we know that on the Southwest corridor, they captured and confiscated 5.5 tons of fentanyl last year. Tons. The cartels don't let you catch it all. You know that. They're okay with a little bit being confiscated. Imagine how much got in undetected if 5.5 tons was confiscated. That was enough to kill every man, woman, and child in this country 5 to 7 times over. It's a weapon of mass destruction being pushed into America by the CCP through these terrorists, these narco terrorists. And I'm not going to sit here as a mother and a citizen of Arizona and allow our children to die by taking a single pill that's been laced with fentanyl. I'm tired of what I'm seeing, and the people of Arizona are tired of it. And we are going to put our foot down and protect this state and protect this country.
And the American people are tired of it as well. And I'm so grateful that people like you are stepping up and stepping into these races, because that's how we get our country back. And we have to make sure to elect state and local leaders that are willing to rise to those challenges and to actually protect citizens first when the government, the federal government, is absolutely not just failing. I mean, I think that it's actually wrong to say that the Democrats are just ignorant or they're not doing this well. No, they're intentionally trying to destroy
indeed.
America.
Absolutely.
And we, the people, are saying no more. And so,
No.
you mentioned your long history and career in media. Shifting to that a little bit, I mean, we're seeing that even the media is complicit in what the Biden administration is failing to do. And so, how have you seen the media targeting candidates like you with, false attacks, false flags, false information? And how can voters find the truth and support true America First candidates?
I'm glad you asked. Real quick, I wanted to show you this though from the border. I pulled
Oh,
this off of my little table here. I picked it up because as a mom, I remember having my son wearing little shoes like this, probably a 3-year
yeah.
old shoe. So this is whether you care about our own citizens or you care about citizens of the world, children coming across, the ground is covered with children's shoes and clothes. The trafficking is going to continue. The suffering is going to continue until we stop it and tell people you don't come through Arizona anymore. And hopefully Texas, New Mexico, and California will say the same thing. There's human suffering on both sides of this, and it's going to continue until we stop it. The only humane thing to do is to stop this trafficking. So that's why I'm doing that. The media has been outrageously unfair. President Trump was right. He kind of opened our eyes to the fake news. Even people in the news even realized how fake it was as they started to become more aware of it, including myself. And that's why I walked away from my career, because during COVID, I realized that in the corrupt news media, there is no interest in sharing the truth. It's only propaganda that is being pushed. And I didn't want to lend my heart and soul and mind and voice to that. So I walked away from my paycheck, and then the people of Arizona asked me to run for office. That's why I'm here. But as I'm trying to get my message out, it's interesting that the local papers are so in bed with the swamp. They won't write any stories about my policy. I just gave them, they begged me for an interview. I gave them a long interview about my immigration plan. And 2.5 weeks have gone by. They haven't written a word about it, but they've written 5 hit pieces about me. So they refuse to cover my policies
Wow.
because they're America First policies that will make Democrats' lives better and Republicans' lives better. That's the beauty of America First. It makes everyone's life better. You didn't have to love President Trump to admit that your life was better with his policies than what Joe Biden is peddling.
Yeah, absolutely. And we all saw that amazing interview that you had. I forget the exact network, but when you turned that around on the reporter and just started asking her questions, saying, what are you doing here, and how the mainstream media is just constantly attacking with these straw man questions that are purposefully designed to be leading questions that are leading into lies and narratives. And so, as people are seeing how you have so effectively turned the narrative back to facts, back to truth, and away from propaganda. How would you suggest that the average person in Arizona and across America can combat that type of propaganda in speaking, maybe with their own friends and family members, and encouraging people to understand what America First is all about?
I think you have to try to take the emotion out. And I do this. I go speak right now a lot of times to Republican groups, but I always tell people when they have a meet and greet, please bring your Democrat friends in. If they're open-minded to listen to somebody who's running as a Republican, bring them in. I think that our ideas are good for all Arizonans. When I talk about my education plan, it's going to raise the bar for all of our kids. It's going to make it so that if you're a Democrat and you don't like the school that your son or daughter's going to, you can find a school that's going to fit and that your tax money is going to go to that school. When it comes to our homeless plan, I think I'm the only candidate I know in Arizona, maybe and the only governor candidate in the country who's got a plan to tackle the homeless problems before we become like California. I want people to be able to go downtown, catch a game, have dinner, and not have to run into or risk having an issue with somebody who's mentally unstable or are strung out on drugs, hurting them, robbing them, or causing some sort of a problem. I don't want to see our state turn into California. And so I think that if I can get before any voter who is willing to just bring the emotion down and listen to ideas, that I can sell them on the America First agenda. It is truly the agenda that I think if our founding fathers were here, they would be America First. If Ronald
Yeah.
Reagan were here, he would be a Trump Republican. Now, I think of the same thing. Trump Republican is America First, but for some of our Democrat friends, they just can't get over how the brainwashing of the media of President Trump, and they just can't get past that. So
Yeah.
that's okay. You don't have to love President Trump like I do. I think he was the greatest president of our lifetime and maybe one of the greatest ever in this country.
I
But not
agree.
everyone feels that way. I think we can sell them on the solutions we have for this country.
Yes, because it's country over party. And that's where people have to get out of this siloed mindset that it's Democrat versus Republican. And like we've said throughout this program, it's America first versus America last. And so this is truly about our country and the direction that we want to see it head. And, President Trump always asks the question, are we even going to have a country in, another 2 years, with how
Right.
rapidly the Biden administration is specifically trying to tear down our American sovereignty. And, for fair minded Democrats, if they truly care about their own families, their own jobs, their own security, and they're getting harmed by inflation the same way as everybody else. If they truly care, they have to get out of this mindset that is Democrat versus Republican. This is all about making sure that it is our country first. So, Kari, thank you so much for being with me today. Where can people find you, support you, and donate to your campaign? Because I tell everyone who listens to this program all the time, don't donate to the National RNC so that they can select the Rhino candidates for you. Donate to the candidates that are America first that you select.
Thank you so much for asking. KariLake.com, KARILAKE.com. You can find me on Truth Social, Twitter, Instagram, Getter. I'm all over at Kari Lake. And then on Facebook, I'm at the Kari Lake. And I would appreciate if people go there and take a look at my policies. And I think they're great policies for everybody. Maybe they can share them with people running in their state. Really critical that we support candidates who are going to help protect this country. And in Arizona, we're at ground zero when it comes to election reform and when it comes to our border. I've had people donate from all 50 states because people know that I'm going to do what I say on that border, and I'm going to protect the rest of the country. We're going to hopefully get other states to come in and help us out. But we need to protect our border. And to do that, we've got to get a border governor who's going to do that. So any donations would help. I'm being funded purely by the people, not the swamp. 80+% of our donations are coming from people who've never donated to any political party or political group. So this is a real true we the people, a rising of the people in this country saying we want people representing us who are us.
That's fantastic. And I'm hearing that all across the country, from Pennsylvania now to Arizona. And so if you are someone who's listening who has been a small dollar donor to other states besides your home state, thank you. And thank you for being part of We the People and protecting the 50 laboratories of democracy that we have across the country, because we have to be the United States of America, make sure to preserve and protect state sovereignty, get people like Kari Lake in office so that we make sure that we make America as great as it can be, and that we reflect our founding values and principles and truly have America first so that we can be the light and beacon of liberty to the world. So, Kari, thank you so much. And I look forward to having you on again soon and continuing the conversation. Of course, I wish you the best of luck in Arizona, and we're pulling for you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate it. Look forward to it. Bye-bye.
I also want to talk about another great American who is the sponsor of this podcast. And that, of course, is my good friend, Mike Lindell. He has been canceled out of so many box stores for simply standing up for his own political opinion. And disagree or not, or support him or not, it is a fundamental right of every American to be able to voice their opinion, and that absolutely includes politics. That absolutely includes issues that are central to our culture. That includes faith. Mike is such a very sincere Christian, and I am proud to consider him a friend, and he is, of course, a friend of this show. So right now, there is a special on MyPillow.com. Click on the new radio listener specials. Get deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including a great towel set, which is a 6-piece set. It includes 2 bath, 2 hand towels, 2 washcloths, made in the USA, regularly $109.99, now just $39.99. But you have to use the promo code Jenna. That's Jenna. That tells Mike that you listen to this show, you're happy that he is a sponsor of this show, and you will get great discounts. But use the promo code Jenna, that's Jenna, either at mypillow.com or call 1-800-564-8475 and use the promo code Jenna.